Introduce yourself, Amanda.
Oh, hi guys. I'm Amanda. I'm the project manager here filling in for Andrew.
Yeah, Andrew, is here 1 week and then he's gone. We're also missing, if you haven't heard his voice yet, Luke Pilgrim.
He is out on the beach. Having the time of his life.
While the rest of us are working, slaving away.
He's definitely earned it, though.
Yeah, for sure. Which made me think I'm the only person who's been on all episodes of the podcast at this point.
You better keep that record alive. You can't ever leave.
I can't believe y'all, because we did hiatus when I had COVID, and then y'all didn't record any without me. So
yeah, well, I think we
had the opportunity.
We were just like, we don't want to really do it without Brad because it's about the three of us, and then literally I'm gone for a week, and you guys are like, let's record.
Oh man. So what are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about video game movies and if video games can ever have a successful movie, a popular movie.
So it's like if they're popular or if they're good, because I feel like they can definitely be popular
and not be good.
I
100% agree.
Yeah.
But our focus is on the new Mortal Kombat movie that just came out. It's the 2021 film by what was the director's name?
I have no idea.
I forgot. I literally knew it. I was like, I'm gonna nail this, and then forgot his name.
The original was Paul W.S. Anderson.
Yeah. I knew that one.
Oh, it's Simon McQuid.
Yeah, that's right. Simon McQuid.
Shout out to Simon McQuid.
It's our boy. I think he's Australian. He's an Australian director.
What else has he done?
You got it right about Australia.
I don't know if
he's just done Mortal Kombat.
I don't think he's done a lot.
I think he's done a lot.
Well, that might change the way I appreciate this movie. I guess. So what? This movie came out at the time we're recording this, maybe 3 or 4, maybe a month at most, right? I know we both watched it, and Luke didn't see it.
He has not watched it.
So it was like the perfect opportunity for us to talk about it with him being off.
Yes, totally.
Podcast, but man, what did you think of the movie?
Okay. So my story with the movie was I grabbed a handle of rum and then was drinking.
Because you were watching the movie?
We were having a group event. Everyone came over to watch it. We were having a little party. So I was like, I'm just going to drink a little bit and watch this movie, have a good time. The rum was definitely, I think, necessary. Because the movie was the writing and the screenplay was not the best. Yeah. In my opinion. I think the most redeemable qualities was the fighting. Okay. The fight scenes and Kano. Yeah. And the effects. That's literally what works for me in the movie.
Gotcha. Yeah, I watched it as well. Me and my brother watched it. I did not have a handle of rum with me. I was sober while watching it, but I can agree that it probably wasn't that great of a movie. And I feel like really what it capitalized on, I enjoyed it though. Yeah. I really enjoyed the movie because of how bad it was.
Yeah. It definitely lended itself to the 1995 movie for sure. It literally felt just like that movie, but with a modern day spin on it. And better effects.
Better effects for sure, because this weekend in preparation for this episode, I watched the 1995 film for the first time, and it's terrible. It is absolutely terrible. It is cheesy effects. The acting is horrible. The writing's horrible. I agree. It's like the new one is almost that with a new paint. Yeah. And
it's kind of like they took a 1995 Pinto or some really terrible car and just kind of gave it the paint job,
made it electric,
upped it just a little bit. Yeah, it's nice, presentable on the outside, but when you turn the car on, it's it's still the 1995.
And it just makes me feel how can you make a good Mortal Kombat movie? Does that even exist? I think it's possible.
Because
you've played, I've played the games a little bit, but you've probably played them far more than I have.
And the games have a decent story, way better than it should be.
It wasn't easy finding out how I'd die or could die. But I reread the file. You followed orders, saved your squad. I'm just glad that my sacrifice saved Earthrealm. And you. Besides, you heard Raiden. Things will never go back to what they were. We all have to choose our destiny.
Yeah. There's a lot of production value that goes into it. The cinematics are really nice. The character development feels right. And I don't know. I feel like you can take that and you can turn it into a movie, but some writers try to put their own spin on it, or they're a fan of it, and it just doesn't.
And I feel like that's the biggest thing with this new one is you have the whole character of Cole, right? I forget what his last name is, but it's almost somewhere non-important because he's kind of like this blank slate. I guess when writing the movie, they really tried to have a surrogate for you to kind of project yourself on.
I really dislike that part because I wanted to see it with Johnny Cage, Sonya, Jax. I wanted all the characters, and instead I'm given this OC original content character that I don't care about at all. And
his introduction's terrible.
Awful.
It's like the issue is they almost make you not want to root for him. Because I think the best type of character, the blank slate character ever in a movie, might be like Luke Skywalker, right? Because you can really feel for him, but he stands in for you. He doesn't really understand this world of Sith Lords and Jedis and being on Death Stars and whatever else. But it's weird with this character. He's kind of entering into this new world, but it's all these exposition dumps. They start him off showing he's a terrible MMA fighter, and then he's supposed to have go fight in the tournament Mortal Kombat.
And the issue too is I think that maybe it would work better if this wasn't borrowing from a game that has an entire roster of characters that you can make your protagonist. It's like instead of giving the people what they want and being able to be like, oh, that's Johnny Cage.
And he's not in the movie at all. He's only teased at the end.
Yeah. And it's like, no, instead I'm given this character that nobody knows about, nobody cares about. In fact, my favorite character is Kano. I'm rooting for Kano the whole time, and he's the bad guy.
And anything I find inside that temple, I keep, not fucking splitsies.
Sounds like we got a deal.
I was gonna head there anyway. Yeah, fucking idiot.
Watching the original one too, I was like, man, Kano is the one character I feel like in both movies that kind of works the best. Sonya, it was just so laughable with some of the stuff. She has such a huge exposition dump when they meet her. I think the problem with the 2021 one is they just are hitting the road so quickly. They introduce Cole, they introduce his family, which at first I thought it was his sister, not his daughter. I did too. He's even though the actor probably is in his 40s, he looks really young.
He kind of reminded me of Neo a little bit, like a young Keanu Reeves.
So he has this daughter who's encouraging him after he loses a fight, and then you find out he has this birthmark of the Mortal Kombat logo, and Jax comes and finds him, and then they have the whole showdown with Sub-Zero. Jax loses his arms, which was really
a cool fight.
I think you were right. The fighting is probably the best part.
And you want to know why I think that is? Is because the director went out and found good martial artists, really strong people who have backgrounds in fighting and acting as a secondary.
And I think that's where the movie suffers.
Yes, it does, because the fights are well coordinated. It's action packed. The camera movements are beautiful. The effects are amazing. But when it comes to acting, and that's the most important part of the movie,
right?
It just falls short. It's not good.
It's almost funny too, because I agree with you. The very beginning scene, when I was describing what happened with Cole and meeting Jax, I was like, wait, the very opening of the movie is Sub-Zero and Scorpion. Before, I guess they were Sub-Zero and Scorpion fighting each other.
Yeah, there's a history between like the Lin Kuei and the other one. Whatever the two clans are that they're from, I totally forgot. Forgive me, Mortal Kombat fans, but they basically have like this warring conflict between these two clans, and that's where like the bad blood comes from.
Yeah.
So I guess they were just setting up their own like feud or like incentive for why Scorpion hates Sub-Zero so much, and I thought it was really well done.
Yeah.
I really just disliked the kid being like the descendant of like Scorpion or whatever. And what really made me upset is like I think it would have worked better is if when he got his powers he got Scorpion's powers, but instead they made him like the bronze kneecap from he gets like a little bit of a bronze suit and he's like, cool, I have armor, that's all I got,
man. And that's where I agree. I think somewhere down the line in writing rewrites or whatever, they probably had that idea and they're like, no, we actually need to have Scorpion, the Asian actor, still in it. I don't know.
It would have worked so much better if they gave him Scorpion's powers and he was like became the new Scorpion.
Yeah, I don't know. It was weird for sure. But Kano's the best part in the new movie. He has the best lines. I mean, there's just so many laughable things that go back to, the movie is about the tournament, Mortal Kombat, that the video games is all about. And they never get to the tournament, really. It's all leading up to the tournament.
It's so aggravating because they're like, yeah, we're cheesing the tournament and we're going to fight them early or whatever. And I was like... Oh.
And I don't know, it just seemed like... I think the issue with this movie is the writing. I can tell that New Line or whoever made it just... They threw some money at it, but not enough. And I don't know if people who were making it, I think they respected the source material. You can tell, I mean, even with the guy playing Liu Kang, the guy playing Kano, I think people cared about what they're representing. But at the end of the day, the writing wasn't there because I don't think they put in the time for the script and just like rushed it, and then you're just stuck in these like small locations training with Raiden.
What's crazy though is the screenwriter is a huge fan of Mortal Kombat because I caught a snippet of it and he was talking all about like how much of an inspiration and influence it was on him, and I was like, what happened?
yeah.
What was cool? Well, another problem I had before we get into what's cool was I don't like that Raiden kind of took a back seat and so did Liu Kang. Because I was like, if anyone's supposed to be a main character, it's Liu Kang and Raiden.
Yeah.
And they're like so secondary. And there's almost no like talk of the Elder Gods and like how that ties into like Outer Realm and like Earth Realm and like how the Mortal Kombat system works and like all of that was.
Do you feel like the original movie does that better because they play a more central role?
I like the story a little bit more in the original, but it was not good. But I at least appreciate what they were going for, and they were like trying to like build up that lore and universe.
Yeah, it's weird. It almost feels like the original movie, they got some stuff right. Like even watching that one, I was like, man, the art direction in this is awesome. They have like the big ship that's like actually there, and there were moments where it definitely felt cheap. You could tell it, it's from 1995. So watching it for the first time in 2021, it's a way different experience than if I saw it, as a kid when it came out, because some of the CGI, when Scorpion's shooting the thing from his
little
wrist,
thing that comes out of his hand, like
it looks like it reminds me of the end of the Power Rangers movie.
Oh,
where, they have the Megazord and it's all just this shiny, like weird looking thing, and it just isn't realistic at all. But that's just kind of a testament to that time period.
It's like the limitations.
Of the CGI, and even the acting, the writing isn't that great, but I felt like the art direction in a lot of parts were like really cool. And I just feel like this movie, there was some stuff that was good, but then there were moments where it just felt kind of empty.
Like
even in the place where they fought the most, it was just kind of...
It was like stone and dirt. What was cool about those locations that I appreciated from them was that everything was pretty much shot on location. There wasn't a lot of, like, in the new one.
Oh, yeah.
There's not a lot of CG, like, backgrounds done, not a lot of green screen and blue screen.
What about when they're on the bridge?
I think that was CG.
Okay.
But I saw a bunch of snippets, like the end when he's in, like, the school that's frozen over with ice.
Yeah. No, that was cool.
Yeah. That was real. The location, like the stones where they were practicing and training, that was real. The desert was real, like the city streets and everything. Yeah. So I appreciated that they were trying to go with more practical than they were CG, and they only use CG when necessary.
Yeah. But I also feel like they spent most of their CGI budget on the Scorpion Sub-Zero fights.
Oh yeah, like the ice effects and like the chain and everything.
Because those look great, and those kind of bookend the movie. But I felt like everything in between. Like, I think after watching it, we talked about this for a second. The what?
The fire, like in
the
his
fire
hand.
in Liu Kang's hand.
Yeah.
Goro has a shot where he's fighting Cole, and like overall, Goro looked really good. Way better than the puppeted version from the original.
Yeah. This puny mortal will be no problem. I'll crush him in one blow.
All right. Let's dance.
But I felt like there was one shot, like a frame or two, where the color correction was off of him. And when he's fighting him in the truck, and I was like, man, it feels like no one looked over this movie and double checked some stuff.
I think they just weren't. Maybe they weren't confident in the CG enough, and like that's their only real CG like character.
Yeah. It's weird. I was watching the Corridor video the other day too, where they were talking about The Day the Air Stood Still, the remake with Keanu Reeves, and they were talking about how some of the CG shots were really well done, and then there were others that just were kind of shoddily thrown together. And they were saying it's probably two different VFX houses.
It could
be.
They
spent more money. There you go. These are the ones we got to get right, and put more money towards it. And then the other one went to a cheaper place, and
where
and it's like, and people won't notice. So I wonder if this movie kind of
probably followed a similar thing, because whoever the house was that did the ice effects, they did amazing.
Yeah.
That was some of the most realistic ice I've ever seen, like CG-wise in a movie. Did you know that for the Goro, what they had was they had one guy in a blue screen suit, another guy on stilts behind him in a blue screen suit, and both of them had giant Hulk fist.
The Hulk hands?
Yeah, they were just like punching him, like the guy down here with his hands, the guy up here with his, and then they had like a head up here for like eyeline and stuff.
That's cool.
It was really goofy and funny looking.
That's funny. Dude, even the setup for that scene, they're like, Cole, don't leave or people will attack your family. And he's like, I'm over with training for this tournament. And leaves, goes, visits his family. And lo and behold, they send Goro to attack him. Like, I just felt like the motivations were just...
I mean, him as a character in general just wasn't good. Like,
it just felt like they were... It was so obvious that they were setting up all these fight scenes without really giving you a good reason, a natural flow and progression into them. It was like kind of, we know we want to have this, so we need to get to this.
I feel like he never...
Cole shouldn't have even been in that fight scene with Sub-Zero and Scorpion at the end.
Oh, yeah.
He just...
It felt out of place.
He's just there.
And I don't know if he won a fight besides the Goro one. I feel like every other fight, he just gets beat.
Yes.
I don't know. And like even his MMA stuff, he gets beat. It's like, man, they really just make this a guy that I don't care about at all.
Yeah, it's like, he isn't that good. And it's like, well, why should we be rooting for him? I feel like that's almost a cardinal sin of filmmaking, where you're not motivated to, follow your protagonist. Even if he's the least interesting person. I mean, again, Star Wars, you could maybe make the argument that Luke's not as interesting as Han or Leia or, C-3PO.
But they still show a change where, like, he's getting better.
But you want to root for him.
Yeah, and this one, I'm like, I don't care about this guy at all. I was like, I'd rather just see Kano win.
wins.
Kano wins.
Also, that stuff really made me upset when they were like purposely like incorporating like the cheesy dialogue from the game.
So that's what I was wondering too. So you don't like that at all?
It just didn't. It felt really out of place. If they had found a better way to write it in and make it work better, then maybe it would have been okay.
So like the flawless victory part, and
it was too cheesy because like he beat him, and like no one's ever gonna like beat someone in a fight and walk up and be like, flawless victory.
Flawless victory.
No one's gonna say that.
Realistically, I mean, no one's going to be fighting for all the outer realm world. And
that's fair.
But yeah, that's, I think, if anything, going back to the overall question, I think that's one thing that really holds back the video game adaption movies is there's almost this tongue-in-cheekness that they constantly feel like they have to look at the camera and be like, hey, like, we're referencing something you're well aware of. And some people really like that. I kind of fall in the same camp as you. I just feel like it's almost a little too cheesy.
Mm-hmm.
And in this movie, it works because it's not that great overall. You know, the story's just kind of there to... This one reminds me a lot of... I think I talked about this off camera before, but... because they're both on HBO Max. I feel like Kong vs. Godzilla came out, and then this one came out maybe a week or two later. And I almost enjoyed this movie more than Kong vs. Godzilla.
Really?
Because of just, it's so unashamedly, it is what it is, you know?
Yeah.
Like Kong vs. Godzilla takes itself a little seriously, like, and it's a kind of cheesy movie still, because ultimately at the end of the day it's, you know, a giant ape versus a giant lizard, you know. Mm-hmm. And there's cool stuff, but it's like people, I think, going to see both these movies just want to see those fights, you know.
Yeah.
And it's like the stuff in between is just filler, you know, it's getting you to the next point. But I feel like the Millie Bobby Brown stuff and the stuff with Alexander Skarsgård and Kong, it's kind of just there, you know. Mm-hmm. It's not,
it doesn't work.
It's middle of the road. It's not great, but it's not bad. But this stuff I feel like is, and I think it helped, you know, me and my brother watched it and we were kind of just joking about it, laughing, you know. So it's more watching it in a comedic sense of like, this is who signed off on
I
this,
agree.
you know?
I agree. Doing it in a group setting where you can poke fun at the movie makes the movie entertaining and memorable.
It's the same reason, like, you know, you could watch The Room by yourself and be like, why am I doing this? This is depressing. This movie is terrible. But when you watch it with a room full of people, you know, and everyone's kind of just poking fun at it, it changes the environment, and it almost makes stuff that, you know, you wouldn't want to entertain yourself with by yourself.
Oh, totally.
You know, and that's really the difference of when I watched the 95 version this weekend. I watched it by myself and I was like, man, this just sucks.
You have to watch it with someone else.
If I watched it with other people, we would have probably been like pointing stuff out, making jokes. And, you know, I think that's what makes sometimes good movie experiences is it doesn't matter how good the movie is, you know. Sometimes you want to just watch a great movie and no one talk in the room and everyone's
that has
mesmerized.
To be a serious like movie that you're 100% focused and invested in.
Yeah, like I'm not
like Interstellar. I don't want anyone to talk.
That was the one I was about to say, honestly, because I remember I went to go see it with my family. Like I avoided all spoilers for it. Like it was around my birthday and we went to see it in the theater and these people right behind me were like all talking right when it was starting, and I turned around and I was like, hey, could y'all shut up? Because I was like, this is important to me. But a movie like this, I'm like, it's totally cool. I could be in the theater, hear people making jokes, it doesn't matter at all, you know. And it almost heightens the filmmaking experience. One of the best like movie going moments that I've ever had was with some friends in high school. The Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern movie came out. Oh no. And we just ripped that thing to shreds. Like I was in tears laughing at that movie in the theater, and I hope none of the people around me were really interested in it, because I just thought it was like the funniest thing. And I'll never be able to replicate that experience watching it, just because I know it's, it was so essential to that time of all of us just cutting up.
Oh, yeah. Like, my favorite part that we were poking fun of in the Mortal Kombat movie was the fact that, like, at the end, after the Sub-Zero Scorpion fight, Scorpion walks over and he's like talking in Japanese to the guy, and like Cole's like from Chicago. They say it at the beginning. He's like, I'm just some kid who grew up in Chicago. I'm an MMA fighter. So I really like the fact that he probably has no idea what this guy is saying in Japanese at all. And he's like giving his life story. He's like, thank you so much. You know, we finally avenged our family or whatever. And he's like, mm-hmm.
お前は俺を解き放ってくれた。我らの血統を守れ。
Thank you.
Yep.
It's so weird too. Like, this movie first starts out, in rural China or Japan, where Sub-Zero and Scorpion fight, and then it's in Chicago. Then they go to Gary, Indiana, because that's where Sonya lives in a
Man, that was the
trailer?
Stupidest setup like ever, where he's just like, I've got a contact in Gary, Indiana.
I was like, is it Michael Jackson's family? Like,
oh my god, dude! I think that like, this is a side note, but like the trailer.
What was the reasoning for Gary, Indiana? Is someone from the Mortal Kombat, like, is one of the creators?
Maybe like Ed Boon or what's his name, Tobias something.
They
Tobias.
had they were like the fighter, right? It was like Tobias Boone or something.
Yeah, Noob Saibot. They took the last name of both and made that character. Maybe that's what it is. But like the trailer that takes place in looks exactly like Chase's trailer that he like used to live at.
Oh, our friend Chase?
Yeah.
Okay.
And like that one, I feel like I see it in every single movie and I can't unsee it.
You think he loans out his trailer?
I don't know, because it's literally the exact same setup and design with like the same hallway and like rooms and stuff. And I'm like, what's happening? Did they buy this off a lot? Like a studio lot?
It was funny. And then the whole reptile fight, which I know you were upset about, right?
I wish that they wouldn't stop making him like a real reptile. I just want to see him as like a normal fighter.
Because of what? He used to be like a normal dude.
Yeah,
right?
he was just a normal fighter, and like he had like different like reptile powers, but maybe there was a game where he actually turned into like a reptile and I just don't remember. And that's what they're referencing?
Maybe, I don't know.
But I mean, like, I like the fight from the 1995 movie after he turns into a normal person and he's not the reptile anymore. Did you know that scene with Reptile in the 1995 movie was added after production?
Really?
Yeah, it was after they had their first like final edit of the movie, they showed it to a focus group, and the focus group was like, your fights suck. They were like, they're really lacking in something, so they're like, okay, and then they went and filmed this whole scene with like Reptile, and they just stuck it into the movie.
Do you feel like if you were part of one of those focus groups, would you be like brutally honest, or would you, or like, because I've read this before of like people being there when I guess they're showing these movies and not realizing the director's in the room. I think I read this on Reddit where some guy would watch the Zack Snyder movie and was like, this movie sucks, like it was Sucker Punch, and just like said that out loud when the producers was asking, and then he realized Zack Snyder was like right behind him.
That sucks.
Like, I just couldn't imagine. I would be afraid to almost speak my mind and how I feel.
I mean, okay, so if I'm talking about just Mortal Kombat from 1995, you'd have to put yourself in the mind frame. This is like the first like big video game movie.
That's the Mario Brothers movie, and then this.
Yeah, and so you've got to be so hyped, especially if you grew up on Mortal Kombat and you're like, these games were like really like gritty, and like I hope the movie like lives up to it. So watching it, I might just be super excited that something I cared about was in movie form. But
did your friends like the new one when you all watched it?
Some of them did.
Yeah.
They were like, it's all right.
Yeah.
It was kind of the whole group dynamic that made it fun. But I don't know I think I might be like pretty honest in like one of those focus groups. I would be like, this is what I like, this is what I don't like.
And that's always the tough thing, right? Of like, you want to be really encouraging because us as filmmakers, you know how much time and effort people put into it, even if it doesn't turn out to be amazing.
I wouldn't berate something without trying to have some sort of way, like constructive criticism to make it like better. It's like, because like if you just bash on it, then you're really gonna like destroy someone's confidence and self-esteem.
And I always felt like that's such a silly way to go about it too, because you're almost like, movies are such a huge team production. I mean, you see the credits, especially something like this, and it's hundreds of people that worked on it, and it's like, you know, maybe the thing didn't turn out to be the Oscar-winning film, but like people still put a ton of time.
Yeah.
So there's always something. Like, the fights are fantastic.
There's a lot of redeeming qualities. I mean, if we made it, I'd be like, this is incredible. Oh yeah, I'm so excited.
That's always the funniest thing of like, if you reframe it in that way, like, I'd be
like super hyped. You want to go ahead and take a break?
Yeah.
On that note.
Hey guys, we just wanted to take a quick second to tell you we have launched our Patreon page. It's a place where listeners can help support the show and gain access to exclusive content.
Now for $5 a month, our Patreon members get bonus episodes like our classic movie nights, where we watch classic films and talk in depth about what we liked, what hasn't aged as well, and how they achieved some of their special effects.
You'll also get early access to episodes before they're released to the public, and we'll give you a shout out on an episode of the show as well. Now, this is a growing platform, so we'll be adding all kinds of new content over time, and you can gain access to all of it exclusively at patreon.com/friends from film school.
You can follow at Sozo Bear Films on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Now, let's get back to the show.
Okay, what we got, Amanda? Anything?
I tried to find like Gary, Indiana, and it just is saying
it doesn't exist.
It's just saying like Indiana was so happy to have Mortal Kombat come and shoot there.
So they actually filmed in Indiana?
I think they did.
Huh.
Why?
Twitter was very happy about it, but
Twitter, the collective voice of Twitter. Really, that's
so like none of the creators of Mortal Kombat, like Ed Boon or God, what's that guy's name?
When I hear Tobias, I think of Tobias Funke.
John Tobias, that's what it was. John Tobias.
You know, not a lot of movies film in Indiana, I feel like.
No. I mean, I don't know what the incentive is. Like, did they have a unique landscape that they wanted to...
like, trailer park? Let me tell you, growing up in the South, there's plenty of trailer parks.
Yeah, Atlanta's got plenty.
You could film.
It just says it's like the Steel City, the city of the century. Just says that's Indiana.
Do you think that was like
Indiana, the state, is the Steel City?
The Steel City.
Was it like... alluding to him getting his powers of the bronze kneecap, like
sure.
Getting his bronze suit.
We'll go with that.
Speaking of, is that a thing from the game? I've played a little bit of the games, but I don't know the storyline super well. So like, is that how they got their powers in this movie from the game?
I don't know. They've, as far as I know, have just had the powers.
Gotcha.
And I just roll with it.
Yeah.
I had no idea where they came from.
Because my favorite part, and I feel like we kind of talked about this before, is Jax. The guy, he's protecting Cole. He's saving him as Sub-Zero's trying to kill him and his family. He's like, get in the car, and then he fights Sub-Zero, and Sub-Zero rips both of his arms off. Mm-hmm. Which, if you play the video games, you know that Jax has like
robot arms. We knew it was coming.
Yeah, we knew it was coming if you know anything about the games, but
it was in the trailer too.
Well, true. But man, when they rebuild his arms, like he shows up at the place where in the desert.
They're in the desert and in a freaking cave, and they're like, we're going to rebuild you robot arms.
Yeah. And he got lost somewhere in Chicago, and they somehow bring him to this place. They rebuild his arms into tiny, like, weak
He's got little, like, chicken arms, man.
And I'm like, what was the point of rebuilding his arms if he's just like super weak? He can't even lift up a bottle of water.
It was like some rusted iron that they found laying around somewhere. They're like, we can do something with this.
So then his superpowers, when he gains them, are Arcana, right? Is that what they call it in the movies?
I don't know. I forgot.
But he gets the power to have better arms.
He literally just gets his arms back and he's like, nice.
Then what? Sonya got like shooting rings.
Something? she gets the little like laser rings or whatever.
And then Kano gets his laser eye.
Yeah, which I guess I kind of like where the powers come from. I think that's a cool idea. I just kind of went with the fact that they all had powers for some reason in the movie or in the games. So.
It felt like one of those things they had to go by the beat sheet for the movie, the 3-act structure, and then they're like, okay, well, we can't just have people have these powers. But I don't know. It was a little funny.
I don't know. I would have been okay if they just had powers.
Yeah.
And they didn't have to explain it, but it was cool because it like led to that training montage or whatever. Which honestly, like there was way too much of that. It was cool at first, and they could have like made a short little montage.
Are you talking about when Kano was training, or
when they all were? They were like training in that little like sand pit. I feel like that just went on too long.
Yeah.
What about our boy Kung Lao?
Kung Lao, man.
I think
his appearance was like kind of laughable.
It was.
He's one of those. I think he fits well in a video game, but in live action, it's just weird.
I really appreciated too that Kano made fun of him in his hat. Like, it made me feel a lot better that like they were acknowledging that it was really goofy.
You know, maybe your Arcana's getting your ass kicked by a hat.
Oh, those are great, mate. They make those in men's sizes? What's his name? Kung Pao. Pass us a fucking egg roll, would you?
Well, how about I take that stupid fucking sombrero you wear and shove it so far up your ass you start speaking Spanish? How does that sound?
I think that's the thing, is like the movie, I appreciated it because it was self-aware of what it was too.
Yeah.
And it's almost weird where I think really what this comes down to me is I think video games are still not to that point where they're as serious or can be taken as serious by the popular culture as comic book movies. They're like where comic book movies were like 15, 20 years ago.
I think they're getting there, but you know, it's like such a tough thing to be able to take something that could be like 60 plus hours of time investment that like you personally play as the characters, you're really invested into the story and like everything, and like taking those experiences and bottling it down into like a 2 hour.
Do you feel like when there is a good video game movie that's been made so far?
I think TV shows do a better job just because they have more time. Yeah. Like, I don't know about movies.
What video game TV show adaptation?
I really like The Witcher. I know a lot of people didn't, but
I haven't seen that.
I was a fan of that.
But doesn't that, it's also a book series too?
Yes, I think so. Yeah, I think it started as a book, became a game, and then became a show.
Okay. So maybe that one's a little bit different in a way. I don't know.
I guess so. I don't know. It's really hard to do. I'm curious to see how The Last of Us does. I'm excited for it. But
do you feel like it's doable to make a good video game movie?
I think it's daunting, and I think it can really ruin or make your career. It's like a high risk, high reward. It's doable, but it would be really hard.
Because I think what you brought up is an excellent point of like how video games, you spend so many hours, and it's almost like not all of that is story.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just gameplay. Like even The Last of Us, you know, they do a good job of weaving the story into the gameplay through like dialogue, but you know, sometimes you're just, you know, fighting people.
I think that's like the part that's missing is the gameplay, because the movie just feels like so empty without it. If it's like a video game movie, because you're not getting to experience that side of it. So yeah. I don't know.
I read an article a little bit before going on air, and it was kind of laughably weird because it was talking about how not too many, or what's holding back movies from, you know, or video game movies from being good. And one was like your character can't die and come back. And I was like, I don't feel like that's.
I think
really
it's like
the important thing.
Your freedom of choice in a game is taken away when it's in a movie. So it's like you're not the one directing the ship; it's someone else.
Yeah.
So maybe it doesn't like fit the frame of how you would like make choices or play the game.
I feel like the big thing to me, and I think this is really where both Mortal Kombat movies suffer, and most video game movies probably suffer from this, is Mortal Kombat as a game really relies on like old kung fu movies and like fantasy stuff, and it's pulling from movies and TV shows and comics and whatever else, but it almost is still, I think, without the gameplay element in and of itself, it's still a little cheesy, right? Like and people just kind of accept it because it's it's fun, it's a video game. So once you try to redirect that and turn it back into a movie, people have a hard time taking it seriously. And I think this is what, if anything, this movie succeeds at, is it's well aware of what it is. It wears it on its it wears its heart on its sleeve. It's proud of it, and it's not going to hold back from the cheesiness of it, of a guy killing someone and then going flawless victory.
I mean, that part I agree with, because in the game it's like the world doesn't make any sense at all. It's like none of this stuff is how it would like realistically work.
You just kind of accept it in the games because it is, at the end of the day, it's fun.
And I think that can also be a crutch when you're making a video game movie, is like if you try to take a concept that's lighthearted fun or like doesn't make sense and try to ground it, make it more realistic, and like how would this really work in the real world, that can also, you could be shooting yourself in the foot because you're taking away what people like about it. But at the same time, if you do it like too cheesy or on the nose, then like, or if you like go with a completely different story that's not like true to it, people can not like it as well. So I don't know,
it's almost a lose-lose situation, I feel like.
Yeah, and like on Rotten Tomatoes, its score was like 55%, which is almost like perfect because it's showing like you're splitting your populace on what they want. Like, do they want it to be cheesy? Do they want it to be more realistic? It's like hard to find a middle ground where you're appealing to both.
Yeah, I had the same reaction with the Power Rangers movie that came out recently. I was a huge fan of the Power Rangers growing up, and looking back at it, the TV show is cheesy. It's a kids show. There's parts that I like about it, but what I didn't appreciate about the movie that came out was it almost was in that weird middle ground where it wanted to be a little lighthearted, but more so wanted to be taken seriously. And I think sometimes you just gotta recognize what you have and what you're working with isn't super serious, and it's hard to say that because you could look at a property like Batman and, The Dark Knight exists in it, and that's like a super serious movie, and it kind of grounds it all. But then you have something like Batman and Robin, which is super, not serious and cheesy and campy. So I don't know. I just feel like a lot of times video game movies, the thing that's holding them back, like even take Resident Evil, and it's been a popular series. It's made a lot of money over time. But I
don't know how they make a movie out of that game series though. Their story makes no sense.
Exactly, and that's the thing, is that like you almost, once you remove the gameplay element, the story doesn't hold up on its own. It's not a I don't want to say this, but it's like almost not a high piece of art, where I feel like novel adaptions work better because you have the story all laid out.
Well, it doesn't have to rely on, because gameplay can be a crutch for the story, like you're saying. And if you like, comic book movies work so well because they're already their own stories. They have multiple stories and timelines to pull from.
And here's my thing though, in rebuttal to that, is I think it took a long time for comic book movies to be taken seriously. Like in our lifetime, you take something, you had, before we were born, the Tim Burton Batman and the Superman movie with Christopher Reeves, but then there was stuff that just didn't really work. I mean, the Fantastic Four movie, or I'm trying to think, even the original X-Men movie, has
that
some
one
cheese
wasn't
to it.
Terrible though.
It's
compared to some of the other ones.
Yeah, but I think that's the thing, is it took them a while before you get to something like Infinity War and Endgame, and where it's now a highly regarded movie.
Pretty, isn't it? Perfectly balanced, as all things should be.
I think that a video game movie might work if you maybe continue a story that's already been set in
you
place.
Think the adaption?
I think it would depend on the people, so you'd have to have the screenwriters that wrote the original story for people to be on board, a well-established director, and then potentially continuing that story onwards might work, because then you're playing with what's already been established. You're not making your own thing. So that could be an avenue to make one of them work well.
I think a lot of the video games that have been made into movies don't have stories that are in the video game form that amazing,
that are good enough for sure. I mean, they've definitely come a long way, because original video games, stuff that we're making movies off of now, is like stuff with like no story and concepts like whatsoever. If they took more modern games and turned it into like movies, it might work better. Like Mass Effect, The Last of Us. If they did stuff like that, Halo. They could.
I know for the longest time they were going to make a BioShock movie.
I think like BioShock would probably be pretty. It would work pretty well. So I guess it just depends.
So you feel like it's more so the ones that have been made that, you know, something like a Resident Evil, a Mortal Kombat, like
they're
even
just choosing
Sonic,
stuff that doesn't have good stories at all. It's just strictly like for fun and entertainment and gameplay.
It's just a popular, I guess, property that they can.
It's well recognized. But I think that if they took stuff like BioShock, Last of Us, Halo, stuff that already has, like Gears of War, decent stories.
So then that's my question: when those eventually happen, you know, The Last of Us is being turned into a series. Do you think there will be backlash because people are like, "Hey, you didn't hit these same story beats"? Because like The Last of Us, the first game, has such it's a great story. The way it's presented is really good. I think a TV series, if anything, lends itself better to as well.
I'm worried about. Like
if it strays too much, are people going to go, "This isn't the story that we fell in love with"?
I think the only way to make it work is like, you played The Last of Us, so it's like making your TV show and story take place in between the time it takes for them to travel across the country. And working it into the original narrative and finding a way to tell a new story.
It's expanding on it, or different kind of...
Yeah, it's like highlighting parts of the story that took place in between the original story.
Gotcha.
I think that's what would make me appreciate it the most, because it's almost like stuff I didn't get to see and experience. So I'm not like mad because they're recreating the story that I already know. I'm getting to experience new parts of that story that were skipped over.
Yeah, and I think that's the weird thing too with video game adaptions, that the people making it are almost in that really tough place where I think comic book movies is the one thing I can compare it to the best, where for a long time comic book movies were almost held back by comic book fans because they needed to, you know, it needed to make sense, and now it's to the point where everyone almost, you know, watches comic book movies. You know, and my parents watch them. You know,
I don't know. Maybe it is like society just needing to kind of like let go of its like.
Because I think it's almost like this movie, Mortal Kombat, it has those moments where it's looking at the fans and going, "Hey, we did the sweeping kick scene," and you know, he's spamming that kick, and Kano draws attention to it because, you know, people when playing the game sometimes do that.
Yep.
That's the only move you know, mate.
And it's like, that's a, you know, self-referential moment, but if you've never played Mortal Kombat before, you know,
that joke would be totally lost.
And it doesn't work out. And I almost feel like video game movies are in that weird thing where they're popular enough with a certain demographic that the people are well aware of it. They're waiting for stuff like that, but then the studios want to also expand to more than just that audience. You know, even though video games are a huge market, not everyone plays video games.
Yeah.
So you can't like have, you know, your family, you know, mom and dad, teenage son. Teenage son is a huge fan of Mortal Kombat, but the mom doesn't care anything about it.
Well, I don't know, because I didn't know anything about comic book series. And I love the Marvel universe. I only knew like DC stuff.
Yeah. So how do you feel like that happened? You just slowly... bought into it? Or?
I guess so. I mean, and I guess the same thing could happen for games. I'm curious to see what, because Final Fantasy 15 has a movie that just came out, I think, on Netflix.
Yeah, is it animated?
Yeah, but it's like the realistic like animation style that they kind of like have or whatever. But like Final Fantasy 15 story was garbage.
Yeah.
And so this is supposed to like clear up a lot of what happened.
Didn't that game have like terrible production issues or something?
Yeah, it's because the guy that was like in he's done like Final Fantasy 7 story and everything. So he's like a really well established like writer. Mm-hmm. But halfway through production, they were like, "Hey, go finish Kingdom Hearts 3." Okay. So he got taken off the second half of Final Fantasy 15. I think got stuck on the latter half of like Kingdom Hearts 3. So then both games just suffered because of that.
So this is supposed to like clear up everything. So do you feel like video game movies should move to that as kind of what you were saying with The Last of Us, almost supplementary stuff that if you've never seen it, it still kind of works, but
I think it does if you keep the same universe and like you have references to that universe that people can appreciate and understand. Yeah. If I see, I don't know, like characters maybe from The Last of Us that are, or their mentions, that I've met in the game or whatever, that's really cool. I like that a lot, but just don't make it too on the nose.
Yeah.
And then have it take place in between the story. So it's like I get more of the world, the lore. Like, make it canon, I guess. Don't make it like some like offshoot story.
I feel like if anything of stuff that's about to be made, I feel like the Last of Us series at HBO could be. I feel like overall video games just need that one thing to stick the landing, and it almost
just like Iron Man.
Yeah, it and you know I think other comic book movies did it, but that really paved the way for the MCU, where it's like someone needs to do it and show everyone else this can be done. Because right now, I think looking at all the video game movies that have been made, I don't really feel like it could happen. I feel like we're like 10, 15
I wouldn't wish it on anyone. Like to be like, have a producer come up and be like, I want you to direct this video game movie. I'd be like, nope, don't want to do it.
I read this where the best video game movies are the ones about video games, or like similar kind of. I think we talked about this with the anime episodes. Scott Pilgrim versus the World, kind of has video game references.
It's like or
Wreck-It Ralph,
Ready Player One.
Yeah,
which that movie was pretty good, but I don't. Yeah, it's not at Steven Spielberg's best.
No,
but
and if you think so,
you're wrong.
Tell us.
I don't know. It's just scary to like tackle video game movies in general, and I think that I truly believe it's because of the third like dimension or level of like the gameplay like mechanic that's involved. Like I think that's
the third dimension.
Sorry, that was a terrible way to frame that. But there's like another aspect.
Once games went 3D, video game movies just were not
really suffered. No, it's because there's another layer. That's probably the way I should say it. Is
it's like a onion.
Yeah,
and ogres.
Ogres have layers.
Yeah.
Okay. Ogres are like onions.
They stink?
No, layers. Onions have layers. Ogres have layers.
But it's because you have this gameplay mechanic that is not in almost any other form of media. Every other form of media is just storytelling to a certain degree. And in video games, you have gameplay, which is like elevating a story to the next level. And when you have this third level and then you backtrack and put it into a movie and you remove that layer, it doesn't feel the same. It feels hollow and empty.
And I think what we figured out is that so many games need that for people to almost excuse sometime the bad narration.
Oh, 100%.
Or the narrative.
Yeah. And I don't know. It's really hard to like go backwards and like turn something that is truly like a work of art in as far as like a game's concerned from like gameplay story and then turn it into just a story. I don't know.
Do you feel like it would almost be easier for a middle of the road game, like one that's not that great, to be turned into a better movie. Like, I've never read the book, but from what I understand, like, the book of Jaws is not that great of a book, but it turned into a fantastic movie. Does that almost set itself up where, you know, filmmakers should, if they're looking to adapt a video game into a movie, they shouldn't be going after the Ocarina of Time, you know, Last of Us, these like high marks of video game storytelling, but more so go for something that is like, I like this video game, it did some stuff really well, it had a kind of cool story, but it wasn't fantastic, and then you almost adapt that.
I think that might work. Like, a game that I could see working really well or really poorly, but you'd probably have a better shot at doing than like The Last of Us would be something like Borderlands.
Yeah.
Because Borderlands' story was like decent, it's okay, but I really like the universe and the world itself is like so rich in content and like lore.
Speaking of Borderlands, they're making that, right? Could you look up who all's in that?
Are they making?
I believe so. So, well, okay, there's a richness to the lore.
Yeah, it's like the world, the universe, the lore, and the concepts of the game lend enough to being able to make a story out of it. You could keep the characters, and you could totally like take the story and elevate it from its, you know, middle of the road. Like,
how much of the art style is important to Borderlands?
100%.
So, do you think it should be sort of animated looking?
Yeah. It would at least have to have like some elements of like that style.
Yeah.
If it's like realism, then maybe you like have kind of like almost like the oversaturated like Mad Max looking like landscapes and stuff.
What we got?
So it's directed by Eli Roth.
Okay.
And it has Cate Blanchett, Jamie Lee Curtis, Kevin Hart in it. And there's no release date yet, but it's probably going to be 2022.
Okay.
And
who does Kevin Hart play?
He probably plays Roland.
Roland.
Yeah.
Is that named after the character from the Dark Tower series with Stephen King? Probably.
I have no idea.
But
I have no idea.
Is this character a gunslinger of some kind?
He's like a soldier.
Okay. Then maybe not.
But I mean, yeah. I mean, I guess you could say that.
Okay. So, Kevin Hart, Cate Blanchett. Isn't Jack Black in the movie too?
It's like they're making Jumanji, but Borderlands.
Yeah, he is. He plays Claptrap.
Oh, that's amazing. That makes me really excited. Who's Cate Blanchett playing? Is she playing
Lilith?
Lilith, that's what I thought.
Does that make sense? Yeah. I've never played the game, so.
Yeah, the original characters are really cool.
Yeah.
The original story was pretty awesome too. Like, well, the gameplay is really what sold it. The story was all right. But
so you think if Eli Roth and his team can like figure out what didn't make the story work all the way, and I think they could do it. You think
if they're incorporating characters like Claptrap into it, especially, and their cast is really like well picked, honestly, for the characters in the game, except for maybe Kevin Hart.
You're not a Kevin Hart fan?
I don't know. It just doesn't seem like he fits Roland very well, but we'll see.
That's the one thing. I've never read the game, but I remember reading when the cast announcement came out and he was picked at Roland. A lot of people were very upset about it.
It's a weird pick because Roland was more of like a leadership role in the story.
So you're saying Kevin Hart's not a leader?
He's more of a comedic relief, which Roland was not.
You think he's going to try to switch it up and be a little different?
He might. The other thing about Borderlands is the game is very comedic. Like everything about it is supposed to be like slapstick.
Yeah.
So I could understand the Kevin Hart pick in that regards.
Yeah.
So if they're going for more of the humor-based like story,
yeah. I feel like Eli Roth is a weird pick for director.
Yeah. Wait, what is he?
He did like Hostel, and he's more well known for his
like horror stuff.
What else did he do?
I don't blame him for wanting to try a different genre.
I think his most recent movie was something with Jack Black and I think Cate Blanchett too. It was like a Disney kind of children's movie.
You know, it's like kind of weird because I feel like picking a almost like less well-known director sometimes can work better for those.
Yeah, he's kind of well-known, but maybe not in like all circles.
I didn't know.
He was in Inglourious Bastards too. Him and Quentin Tarantino do a lot of work together.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is his stuff kind of like in Quentin Tarantino style a little bit? Does he borrow from that?
I would describe him almost as a mix of Tarantino and Rob Zombie.
I would say the gore factor of his films is very similar to Tarantino.
Okay. I definitely, there's a lot of gore in Borderlands, and I think if he takes it and kind of like puts that Tarantino twist on it with like the comedic beats, I think it would work really well.
Huh.
Yeah, that's a series out of most games that I think you could really like nail with like a TV show or a movie.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Do you feel like, what's the odds this being good? What's better, you think, coming out? The Last of Us TV show, which has got Pedro Pascal from The Mandalorian.
I expect so much more. Like, I'm going to be so much more critical with The Last of Us.
Yeah.
I know I am, just because that game I care about so much more, and the story was so well done. The cast is, I like the cast a lot for it. But man, they really have to just nail that thing for me to like really love it. For this, it could be like Mortal Kombat, and I could still appreciate it and like it.
So you feel like if The Last of Us doesn't reach that like amazing peak of, you know, everything that the games were, it's going to be a disappointment.
Yeah, I think the hardest part for me to get past too is like the voice acting was so memorable in The Last of Us that like, just not having like Ashley Johnson as Ellie, it's like, God, I don't know.
Everyone I have cared for has either died or left me. Everyone fucking except for you. So don't tell me that I would be safer with someone else, because the truth is I would just be more scared.
You're right. You're not my daughter. And I sure as hell ain't your dad.
It's going to be so different, and it's just going to be like, that's not Joel, that's not Ellie. I don't know.
What do you feel like is your favorite video game movie that you've seen? Is it Mortal Kombat?
Maybe. I don't know. Most of them are really bad. So there hasn't been one that I've like been blown away with. I'd like to see Sonic. I haven't seen it. I did like Detective Pikachu.
Does that count? Is there a game like, I know Pokemon's that weird thing where it also has the anime side of it.
Yeah, I don't know. It was kind of an enigma, but I really appreciated it. Yeah. I liked Ryan Reynolds as Pikachu. If they had just, I forget, I think I was talking with Andrew, if they had just pushed it to PG-13.
Yeah, wasn't that Jake who mentioned it?
Maybe it was Jake that like, it could have been so much better because you were just missing more Ryan Reynolds out of like Pikachu.
Yeah.
What is that?
Silent but deadly. Apologies, my tummy's bad from all the coffee.
No, ew, get off.
Because like you could tell he was like being held back.
Imagine
and constricted.
saying that sentence in like 2004. People would be like, "What?"
They'd be like, "I don't get it."
You're like Deadpool, and people are like, "Yeah, I still don't get it."
The story was cool though, despite the fact that they didn't really do like traditional Pokemon stuff where you had like regular battles and like, you know, you throw out the Pokeball to like catch a Pokemon or whatever. It was more of like just the world coexist with them like normal animals.
I feel like if Pokemon counts, I would say the original Pokemon movie might be one of the best video game.
That was animated though. Does that count?
Let's say no.
I mean, that was a great movie.
I don't know if
I was like,
honestly, then I don't know if there's one that I would really stand up for.
If we can count that one, I would argue that one as well. Yeah. Because the ending was like so good, and the message at the end from you two, oh, it was amazing.
Seeing your quote worthy. I feel like every there's some kid in every yearbook who has some Mewtwo quote. Where it was like it doesn't matter the circumstances of one's birth, but like what you do with it that counts or something like that. Yeah. I'll just throw a clip up so we can see it.
I see now that the circumstances of one's birth are irrelevant. It is what you do with the gift of life that determines who you are.
Man, I feel like the other comic book movie, video game movie that I've seen that is just as terrible, maybe even more so than any of the Mortal Kombat, was the Mario movie.
Oh god, that was so bad. We've talked about it before.
Yeah, it just didn't work.
Dude, I can't.
It took everything that, like, Mario is a simple premise, and I think there's an animated movie coming out of that too.
It's like, yeah, they're doing Mario, I think, animated. They're building the Super Smash Brothers universe.
Yeah.
Don't be surprised in 10 years if we have a Super Smash Brothers movie and it's like the Justice League.
Yeah, they have a release date for September 16th, 2022.
Hey, wow. 2022 is going to be the year of video game movies. We'll see if it lands on its feet.
If we can get a Legend of Zelda movie and we can get like a Star Fox movie, we have the makings for Smash.
I think if anything, I think Legend of Zelda would be the one series that I would like to see a good movie.
You see, I think it would work too because Link is like a super ambiguous, like he never talks.
Yeah.
So he's more, it's easier to relate to Link and see him in a movie than it is for adding this OC character to Mortal Kombat. Yeah. Cole Young. And also Link is just an amazing character. Hyrule's a really like rich world for like a video game. There's a lot to do.
That if they make it, it's going to ruffle some feathers because Link's never talked, right? Or have they introduced him to having lines?
He has talked, and what were those games? They were like animated.
The CD-ROM one.
Yeah,
We'll cut to a clip of that.
Oh boy, I'm so hungry I could eat an Octorok.
Oh my god, those are so bad. I think that might be the only time he's talked, but they gave like Zelda a voice. Like they gave all the characters except Link a voice in Breath of the Wild.
Really?
Yeah, so like Zelda's got like full like character dialogue. But the creator has said he never wanted Link to talk because he wanted him to be an ambiguous character that you could relate to, which I think is really cool.
It works for video games, but if they could pull off a movie where the main character doesn't talk at all, I would be like, you did it, congrats, because that would be impossible.
Be impressive.
Yeah,
because in the games he's just like, they'll be like, Link, I think we should do this. What do you think about this? Link, I love you, and he'll be like, That's it. He just nods.
Oh yeah. Oh man. Well, anything else you want to add to this episode?
I think that's it. Are they making a Five Nights at Freddy's movie?
They are, and they're making a
Oh, she's got the list.
Minecraft movie.
Oh yeah. No! How are they going to do that?
Well, I will say I know about the Minecraft movie because it's got Rob McElhenney or whatever his last name is from It's Always Sunny. He's directing.
McElmy?
Maybe.
It says that Peter Solit from Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist is directing it.
Never mind. Okay.
Wrong.
I feel like he was set to direct it at some point.
Probably.
I wonder if like they're purposely choosing stuff that has zero story whatsoever because then they can create their own story without offending fans.
I think the other thing too is these animated movies, there's probably the higher likelihood of them being super successful because one, you have kids play Minecraft all the time and they're going to see it regardless. I'm surprised. Are they coming out with like a Fortnite movie? Because I feel like that's only a matter of time.
Oh, they will have one.
Yeah.
I'm seeing a Fruit Ninja movie coming up.
What?
Games with zero story somehow are the ones that are like constantly getting made and then they fail and they're like, what happened?
And a Just Dance movie. So we're getting into the Wii game.
Why?
I feel like those are both like 10 years too late.
Yep. Agreed.
What else we got?
It's like making like a Flappy Bird movie or like Doodle Jump movie.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
Early iPhone.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
If someone came across to us and was just like, we need you to make a Doodle Jump movie, I'd be like, you guys want to say no to that, right?
Oh man.
And then they're making an Assassin's Creed TV show for Netflix.
Oh. The Assassin's Creed movie was not good.
I heard it was terrible. I
have it on the desk over there.
I never really played the game, so.
Oh, the games were great. Their story didn't make a lot of sense.
Did or didn't?
Did not.
Okay.
They had like a whole side story going on with this main character, and then he just like randomly dies in one of the games, and now they just have a completely like new take on the game series. It's so weird.
Video games, man. What else we got, Amanda? Anything?
Without Remorse with Michael B. Jordan. See, I feel like Michael B. Jordan would be a good person to play Roland.
Yeah, I 100%
he's done
agree.
Comedic roles before, and he also has the leader physique and tone.
Like in that Love, Death, and Robots episode, God, he was so good.
He's so good. Uncharted with Tom Holland.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I heard that Tom Holland was like really pissed off about filming that because he had to get super buff, and he said there wasn't really a lot of focus on his acting. It was just like, let's look at Tom Holland with the shirt off. And so he was like really annoyed by it.
Yeah. I could understand that.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of faith in Uncharted because he didn't seem like he was very happy with it.
No, but also he didn't have to say yes to the movie roles.
Yeah.
He said yes to the dollar amounts. I'll say this too. Uncharted, I feel like, same thing with the Lara Croft movies, both the new one and the Angelina Jolie, like they both rely so heavily on the Indiana Jones format, and it's like that's where the inspiration for the games came from. So it's like when you remake them into movies, it almost, you remove the playable aspect of being able to play a Indiana Jones storyline, so then it just doesn't work as well because it's not Indiana Jones. You don't have someone like Steven Spielberg making the movie.
Yeah, because movies into games definitely works. In my opinion, I think that it's been proven multiple times, time and time again, that you can add that next level, and then it just only enhances your experience. But taking it away, it doesn't.
I think sometimes those movies or the games work because it's not necessarily always an Indiana Jones game, you know?
Yeah.
It's taking that style, if it's Tomb Raider or Uncharted, and it's like taking, wouldn't it be cool to be able to be Indiana Jones in one of those adventures?
Yeah.
And then they make it, and it ends up being cool. But yeah, when you go back and you're like, well, let's take this storyline and then make it a movie, you lose the whole aspect of why it was a video game to begin with. The ability to play one of these movies.
Yeah.
It just feels like a step back to me.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that this is going to keep happening too once we like get more into like VR, because VR is adding another layer.
Yeah.
So VR is adding the ability to use your body and like your entire periphery, sound, everything you like see and touch is like that next level of gameplay. Because once you go backwards from VR, it's like you feel like you're like so disconnected from like the game or whatever. So I think that it's like just a continuous like layer system that like keeps happening, and if you
they're going to get further away from like being able to make a movie out of a video game.
Yeah, because dude, I don't know. It just feels like games were like the next step from movies, and then VR is the next step from games. And
well, you can't say that on a movie podcast.
Well, I mean, it's nothing against it. I still love movies and I like games too. I'm just saying that they're almost like completely separate entities now that.
Oh, for real.
It's hard to have that crossover.
Absolutely. Anything else?
I'm good.
Amanda says she's good. I'm feeling good. I think that was another fantastic episode.
I think we cracked the code.
I don't think they'll ever make good video game movies.
Never.
And
then cut to a month later, we're like, wow, The Last of Us was the greatest thing I've ever seen.
Well, that was another episode of Friends from Film School. You catch us every Friday on podcast.
Anywhere that streams podcasts.
Or YouTube.
Yeah, you can watch the video form on YouTube where we have like a lot of like inserts and cuts to like kind of what we're talking about. It's definitely a little bit more interactive than the audio version, but the audio version is still a banger.
Oh yeah. And if you want to become a patron of the arts or this podcast specifically, follow us at patreon.friendsfromfilmschool. think we just released a brand new kind of food challenge. I played Sean Evans in a Hot Wings.
I played myself.
Yeah, in a Hot Ones challenge. Me and Ellis did, and that's on the Patreon if you want to check it out. It's a pretty funny.
Then we're also on TikTok, which you can check out. It's Luke's TikTok handle, Robert Luke Pilgrim.
No.
Or is it Luke Pilgrim?
At the Luke Pilgrim.
Okay, totally wrong. Sorry, Luke. But you can check us out on there. We've been making a lot of cool 1 minute little shorts where we've kind of experimented with some new VFX, storytelling, and kind of getting to flex our muscles a little bit.
Yeah, and definitely subscribe to us on YouTube. We've got some, you can watch the podcast, watch our shorts, and also we'll have some new vlogs coming out. So
really excited about those.
Ton of cool stuff on the radar. But I think that's it. Signing off. So
yeah,
I'm Brad Kennedy.
I'm Ellis Treese.
I'm Amanda Shadmani.
Okay, see you later.
All right, later, guys.
Bye.